Hi, this is Josh from Motion Worship, and this is ProPresenter in 5 minutes. From time to time, we get questions from you about how to lengthen a countdown to fit your service, so let's take a look. To lengthen a countdown, what we're gonna do instead of adjusting the video is we're going to recreate the video in ProPresenter. First of all, we need to set up a timer for the length that you want it to be set for. So we're gonna go over here on the right side. We've got all these little icons here. We're gonna click on this clock icon and we're going to click Add Timer. Once you've got this timer pulled up, you can name this whatever you want. I'm gonna name this one 10-minute countdown. And then I'm gonna change the duration to 10 minutes. We've got hours, minutes, and seconds here. Once I've got my countdown set up here, the next thing that we're gonna need to do is add a theme. So we're gonna go up to the top left, we're gonna click on Theme, we're gonna choose New Theme. I'm gonna name this one Fluorescent Countdown. And then it's gonna pull up this editing window. It automatically is gonna come up with a text box here, and then we're gonna add a few things. First things that we're going to add are some media. This media is eventually going to be deleted again. We're just pulling this in order to match some colors and shapes to it. So the first piece that we're going to need to bring in is the countdown that we're trying to copy. So I'm going to pull in that fluorescent countdown there. The next thing that I'm going to pull in is the background that we're going to use. So all of our collections come with the background that we use for our countdowns. So you should be able to pull that up fairly easily as well. So I'm gonna bring that one in. It's the fluorescent orange teal rain. And then the last thing that I'm gonna bring in is just going to be the welcome slide from that same collection. I just like using that in order to match colors and fonts and that kind of stuff too. You'll also notice that on the side here, this is kind of like layers and any other sort of editing thing where we can click on that eyeball and hide or bring them into view. So right now, all we want to be looking at is our text layer and the countdown. And now we're going to double click on the text. We're going to choose 5 minutes because what we're trying to do now is match this text to the 5-minute countdown text. Over here on the right side, we've got our text editing window. And the first thing that we're going to look at is just making sure we have the right size for our font. So I'm going to scale that size up until we have about the right height. And I'm gonna be trying to match these zeros. So I'm gonna drag this around, make sure we've got about the right height. So in this case, the font that we used for this collection does not come standard on ProPresenter, so I'm just gonna choose something that's pretty close. So in this case, I chose Hiragino Sans, and while it's not quite exactly the same, it's pretty close. It's got that thin sans serif sort of look to it, so I'm just gonna match that. Once we've got the height of our text correct, the next thing we want to look at is just the character spacing. So we're going to click this little gear down here. We've got character spacing. I'm going to go ahead and drag that up until that feels about right. You may need to be doing some repositioning. 36 feels really close. Drag it so it's pretty much right on top. And again, it's not the same font, so it's not going to be perfect, but it's pretty close. So the next thing that we're going to do is change the color of our font to match our slide. So we're gonna come back down into where we have our media. We're gonna go ahead and make the welcome visible. So we're gonna click that little eyeball, and then we're gonna highlight our text again. Now we've got our text color over here. We're gonna click the color wheel. Then down in the bottom left corner, we're going to choose the color picker. We're gonna pull that over the font on the welcome slide and choose that color. Now we're gonna go ahead and hide that again. And you're gonna hide the countdown as well. And you can see that we've changed the color there. Now, one of the things that you'll notice when we go back and look at this is we've got this blur going on. And when you look at the text here with the 5 minutes, it's pretty sharp. We don't have a great way in ProPresenter to just add a blur directly to the letters. So what we're gonna do instead is we're gonna click on shadow. And with that shadow, we're gonna turn the opacity all the way up to 100. We're gonna turn the offset all the way down to 0. So the shadow is gonna be sitting directly behind our text rather than just slightly offset. I like the blur to be set somewhere between 6 and 8. I think that's kind of where it has the most impact. And then we're gonna choose this color wheel. We're gonna use the color picker again. And we're gonna use the same color that we did for the actual text. And you can see we've got a little bit of a blur here. And that's just gonna add a little bit of interest to that countdown. Now that we've got our text pretty well set now, we're gonna go ahead and bring that shape behind it, that rectangle that you see on our countdown. So we're gonna make that countdown visible again. You can see the outline of the shape here. And now we're going to add a shape using the plus sign up here. We're gonna choose rectangle. We're gonna bring that rectangle behind the text. And now we're just gonna drag this to try to match the background here. May take a little bit of back and forth to make it just right, but that's pretty close. Now we're gonna adjust the color of this. We wanna make sure that up in the top right of our editing window, we're choosing shape. And then we've got our shape color, the fill here. We're gonna choose the color wheel. We're gonna do the color picker. And then you can see here on the side, that welcome one is up here. We're just gonna choose the same color there. And that's pretty close, but one of the things that you'll notice if you pull up the welcome is that there's a little bit of transparency to that. So we're gonna add that transparency as well. So we're gonna click on that color wheel again, and you can see we have opacity here. We're gonna bring that down somewhere around 80 or 85, 83 is probably about right. Now we're gonna get rid of the countdown here. We're gonna bring in the background that we wanna use. We're gonna drop that behind the text that we're using. And that's pretty close. I think I'm gonna adjust one thing on the color. I'm just gonna bring the brightness up a little bit. I'm gonna add a little more white into it. It seems a little darker than the welcome one. So now we're set with the look of our countdown. We can go ahead and delete all of the media that we pulled into our theme because we won't need that anymore. And this will be the countdown overlay that we have. So now we're gonna go back, and the last thing we need to do is click on the text, and this is where we connect that countdown we made earlier to this text. So we're gonna go to text on the right side, and down at the bottom here, there's a checkbox that says linked text. We're gonna click on that. On this dropdown that says choose type, we're gonna choose timers. We're gonna choose 10-minute countdown. That's the one we just created. Now you see it pulls up all of these numbers, so we do need to do a little bit of editing here under the format here. We wanna get rid of the hours, so choose that double dash there. For the minutes, I prefer to just do the single M because I don't like the 0 in front when we're down into single digits. I'd rather it says 5 minutes rather than 0.5 minutes. And then we'll get rid of these milliseconds altogether as well. You'll see it has a bunch of numbers here, but once we use this, it'll just show what's actually on the timer. Once we're done here, we're gonna click on show to go back to our presentation. And next thing we're gonna do is use this plus sign here to add a slide. We're gonna choose the fluorescent countdown, double click that. So here is our timer. Next thing we need to do is add an action. We're gonna choose timer. We're gonna choose 10-minute countdown. And we're gonna make sure that this says start. So when you click on this slide and fire this slide, it's going to start the countdown. And then the last thing that we need to do is bring our background in. So we're gonna bring that background in, set it behind it. Now when we fire our slide, we've got a 10-minute countdown going. Looks really similar to the countdown that you would have downloaded on the site. It's just a little bit longer. As you can see, there are a few moving parts here, but ultimately it's super simple to create a custom countdown for any length for your service. I hope that's super helpful. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop those in the comments.